To master a perfectly grilled steak, you must perfect your technique.
This is the ultimate Tomahawk Ribeye.
Today on Dad's Guide.
This is actually a subprimal from the rib primal.
There are two very different ends here, two different cuts.
This side here is closer to the chuck, which is the front shoulder, which does a lot of work. And on the back is the loin side, which is closer to the butt. And cut.
Our first technique is butchering.
All right, we have our slicing knife, which is gonna do most of the work. We have our cleaver and our mallet, which together are gonna help us get through that last bone. And then, these are not tools. I'm not so worried about the knife strokes up top. Once I get down to the top of the ribeye, that's when I wanna chill out for a second so that you can do long strokes, let the knife do the work. So what I'm looking for here is just to follow that bone as parallel as I can right here.
Look at the spinalis on this one. Oh my gosh.
That is epic.
It is epic. When you start to cut in this and you start to see a really pronounced spinalis, this ribeye cap here, that's when you know you're getting somewhere. So this is the most tender, most beautiful piece of meat. It's one of our favorites on the entire animal. Between that and hanger steak, is there anything you like better?
This is the piece.
This is the piece, yeah. There it is. That is a perfect cut. If I got this, I would be really stoked.
Yeah.
Let's get into another cut. We're not quite at the middle yet. Turn it and drop it. Getting your line in there. Yeah. Mark's going around the chine bone here, which is actually really cool. Basically going right around it just to get it off. Bingo. This is a perfect cut.
Pretty exciting. People say center cut a lot, and I think they don't even understand why they're saying it. But the reality is, on this subprimal, there's a huge transition happening from one side to the other. The middle is where you do get the best of both worlds. Look at how different these two ribeyes are that came from the same subprimal. You've got a smaller eye and a big ribeye cap or spinalis here, and on this one, it's almost all eye. So if you go to a high-end steakhouse, ask them, am I getting a center cut tomahawk? If they say no, go somewhere else.
Go to another restaurant.
Those people.
Which brings us to our next technique, Frenching. We're gonna trim the fat and meat and connective tissue off this rib bone.
If we tried to cook this like the ribeye below it, it would be completely inedible. Besides just presentation, we do this because the short rib won't render out completely. You can also save it for burger grind.
Look how much fat this one had. When you're butchering stuff, you'll start to learn there's all sorts of little seams and pockets that you can get your knife into, kind of pull and push. You're kind of using this leverage almost like an opposing force. You're pulling one way and pushing the other. I'm gonna basically use my knife as a guide. When I get it like this, I'm gonna be able to actually have some leverage point and then pull it off in one piece, which should make it a little bit cleaner.
Impressive.
So this is the part you don't put in the grind.
Unless it's for your in-laws.
Yes, good point.
This is perfection. But being a perfectionist can actually be a detriment because you could literally never make the steak because you just keep finding little pieces to pull off.
Technique number 3, trussing.
This is a vital step because it's gonna hold this incredibly tender piece of meat together while we cook it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and tie these up right now. We don't want them to fall apart during cooking. And if you tie them and cinch them together, it's gonna cook more even. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Don't do the thing you always do.
Okay. This might seem like something that's not that important, or it might be a vanity play, but the reality is this could fall apart on the grill if you don't do this. Technique number 4, salting.
This is a big piece of meat, all right? So you can salt these very generously, but you have to use kosher salt. This seems simple enough, but if there's one thing easy to screw up, it's seasoning. And that brings us to technique number 5, low and slow.
Today we're gonna use the champion of charcoal grilling, the Big Green Egg XL. This baby's rolling at 225 to 250 degrees.
We're aiming for coast to coast pink at 120 degrees internally. Mark, after we're done with this low and slow, how are we gonna sear it?
Stay tuned to find out. It's gonna be worth it.
You better do it. Our steaks are getting that perfect internal temp, so we're gonna give them a flip to help even out the cook. While our tomahawk ribeyes are grilling over there, we're gonna go ahead and put together some compound butter, jalapeno cilantro compound butter.
We're gonna start out by doing a fine dice to 1 jalapeno. Seeds and ribs removed. That's pretty cool. I just dragged my burn through some jalapeno juice.
It's metals, man. So we've got some lovely cilantro here. We're gonna keep the stems because they're crunchy and full of flavor. Metals. Then we're gonna add in half a squeeze of lime, a good handful of tortilla cheese. Tortilla cheese is metal!
Of all the things we've done this week, that's the one I hope the most doesn't show up in the edit.
So metal! And some fresh cracked black pepper.
And then we're gonna give it a stir and make sure it's all incorporated with our fork. We're not gonna roll this up and put it in the fridge because we want it to melt into the ribeye quickly and easily.
Technique number 6, proper rest.
Once we hit 120 degrees, we need to let these sit for an hour. When you first take it off, there's gonna be a lot of heat stored in the outside of the meat.
Yep.
So after you let it rest for just a few minutes, we're gonna flip it again because you don't wanna trap any of that heat between the steak and the cutting board and overcook one side of the meat.
And now, let's tell them how we're gonna actually sear these, Mark.
Caveman style, right in the coals. We're using our Big Green Egg Mini Max for this next step, and we left it open so it gets extremely hot. This method works because it's in extremely hot coals for a very short amount of time, so you're gonna get a high temperature sear without cooking the inside of the steak.
I've got my heat glove on, French bone to hold on to, and my steak is trussed so I can be a little rough with it. Everything we've done so far has been in preparation for this moment.
Ooh, baby. If you do caveman delicate, you shouldn't be doing caveman.
You shouldn't be doing caveman. There's nothing delicate about this process, man. Yeah. We're doing just about 90 seconds aside and brushing off that charcoal each time.
Oh my God, Faye, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
F***ing A, man. Before we slice these up, let's take a moment to appreciate technique number 8, the second rest.
So right when we took them out of the fire and put them on our cutting board, look here, you can see we actually propped them up a little bit. That is a specific technique to not steam off the crust we just built. All right, let's cut into these puppies.
You want to cut these thick enough that when everybody gets a piece, they feel like they're eating a steak. If you do it too thick, it's going to be hard to eat. Too thin, it's going to be too precious.
A real beaut.
That's tender.
There's something to be said about the patience needed for an outcome like this. For us, this fall is nothing short of a Michelin-worthy dish with painstaking preparation.
A steak of this caliber can be easily overlooked, but for those who appreciate taking their time and are determined to cook the most ultimate bite, there's almost no comparison. Let's eat.
After all this work, all this patience, 2 types of grilling, low and slow, then a sear. Man, we even made some beautiful jalapeno cilantro butter. You even did a quenelle. Yes, chefy chef. All right, let's taste it.
Oh, I'm doing full spinalis.
I knew
here.
he was.
It's for you.
Thank you, sir. This is why we do what we do, Mark. It's so delicate and it's such a flavorful and pleasing chew. It's unbeatable. Man, it doesn't get much better than this. What do you guys say?
It's smoky, it's got a big beef flavor. That mired reaction on the outside is crispy. So you get luxurious, marbled beef in the middle and crispy on the outside. And then the lime, cilantro, and a little bit of heat from that butter is pretty epic. It's the ultimate tomahawk ribeye.
Yep, exactly.
Give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more from us. And if you have an idea for a Dad's Guide topic, put it in the comments.
That's right. Or you can ask us to do this again because we'll happily make another one of these.